The CEO of Arrowhead Studios, Shams Jordini, recently made a comment in the main Discord saying more enemies equals more difficult, but more enemies also equals rougher performance. So we want to find other ways to push difficulty. Some love D10 and most play at lower difficulty. Now, this comment caught the attention of a few news outlets for Helldivers, but it caught my attention as well because it does sound like they're just basically not planning on upping the total spawn limits that you can run into at the end of a match. Now, my main problem with this is that the maximum spawn limits have gone down over the past year. This current patch in particular, the amount of enemy spawns on Super Helldive are probably the lowest they've ever been. But the performance of this patch and also of Helldivers this past year has not really been great. Many people have been asking them to pause the current content release schedule or pause the current war bonds, and people have literally been asking them for just performance patches. Yet I'm going to show you guys that the spawn counts are not what they were a year ago. Now, one thing I really do want to say here is that 9 months ago, I made a video bringing attention to this issue, to the total spawn counts on Super Helldive, and it didn't get many views. And the reason for that is probably exactly what Sham said. A lot of people probably play on difficulty 7. You know, people don't queue up the hardest difficulty in this game. However, what I'll say is that, you know, a year ago when they did the 60-day plan, I fought really hard for you guys to get weapon buffs. If you guys could please watch this video and like it, just give it a watch. You don't even have to share it, but this is a really important topic because it affects my personal enjoyment of this game. You know, nowadays I really only have fun like soloing the Predator strain who aren't even on the galactic map all the time. I also really enjoy fighting the Jet Brigade who aren't there all the time either. And I know it's not everyone's favorite topic to talk about game difficulty because difficulty versus fun is always a hot topic. People always pin them against each other. However, in my opinion, they go hand in hand. A good challenge is what creates that adrenaline and excitement, and the main problem with the game pre-60-day plan was not that it was too difficult, because to be honest with you, if you had a lot of hours in this game like I did, the game was still easy during Escalation of Freedom, but the problems people really had were just a lot of bullshit mechanics. So before we get into this deep dive, we're going to be shouting out today's sponsor, Syndicate GG. They have a Helldivers merch shop. They sent me over a Face the Wall t-shirt, which is very high quality. They sent me over a beanie and a trucker cap, which I enjoy wearing all of them. We also collabed on a thick fillet desk mat. Mine will be here soon, but one of my viewers, Fury, already ordered one, and he says it looks great. Links in the description for this merch shop. So the main thing we're going to be talking about is the enemy spawn counts from this patch compared to patches a year ago. So the obvious first question is, what is the amount of enemies a full squad can kill in one game? You ever drop a bot game with 500 or 600 kills, or on the bugs, you even get over 1,000 kills and you thought that was insane? But what is the total amount of enemies that can show up in a game across your whole squad? Like, what's your whole squad's total kill count? So luckily for me, one of my friends, another YouTuber by the name of Claysthetics, started doing squad games where they literally just did the main objective and then they sat outside of nests or bases or detector towers and made the enemies call breaches for the entire duration of the game. Clay sent me screenshots of 2 games all the way back in August 2024, pretty much exactly a year ago, where he got 4,277 kills in a 4-man lobby. Now, it's also a small note, but it's really important to say here that their loadout consisted of mainly turrets, and Clay was also able to get another game that I told him to upload, so hopefully he does that. But him and his squad got 4,500 kills total over 1 year ago. Look at this kill screen at the end. 3 people on the squad have over 1,000 kills. And what's funny is if we look at a high kill game to like this patch, here is the kill screen this patch of one of our highest kill squad games, and I have 900 kills, and the rest of my squad has far less. Occasionally we'll get 2 people on our squad with like 900 kills, but the other 2 people have 500 or less. And the funny thing is my amount of kills from the high kill game this patch was the lowest amount of kills on Clay's team a year ago. So what's going on here? Well, it's clear that the spawn counts got lowered, and this is where we dig into some patch history, because over time they made the game less fun for difficulty 10 players. So back in the day, you could have this many gunships on your screen. They were pretty much guaranteed to kill you at least once, which meant you dropped your support weapon, and you had basically no way to come back because stratagems don't aim at them, but you can just kill a gunship with a Scorcher or a Purifier or any good medium penetrating primary weapon, right? Yeah, now you can, but when gunships first launched, they were heavy armored enemies, meaning that 0 primary weapons at the time could even do damage to them. And this caused them to put out this patch 01000.300 on April 29th, 2024, which was the first nerf to gunships over a year ago now. Gunship spawners have a much lower cap on how many they can spawn. But this didn't solve the entire gunship issue, because the main problem is it's hard to come back after they kill you. It felt bullshit. It felt unfair. And they've patched them, lowering their armor and their health over time. And even in a very recent patch just a few months ago, now even their main body health is only medium pen. Now, I'm bringing up gunships because I think this is the perfect example of what has happened to Helldivers. The original problem with gunships was that they were flying heavily armored enemies. No stratagems would target them, and when 12 of them spawned, it was guaranteed to kill you. And what happened was you would drop your support weapon on death, the only item in the game that could reliably kill them, and you now have no way to fight back against gunships. And what happens is you start death spiraling. And that sort of mechanic where it feels like you can't come back after things go haywire, it's very, very frustrating. And so you could say there were 3 challenges to launch gunships that made people complain about them. You know, they were too tanky, too many of them spawned, and barely anything in the game could even damage them. It was pretty much only support weapons. But the problem is, Arrowhead nerfed every challenging aspect of this enemy, the spawn counts, the armor pen of them, and they lowered the health. When in reality, the main issue was that there was just way too many little ways to deal with them. If a gunship kills you, you now have to run 50 or 100 meters back to your support weapon, and it just causes this bad feeling gameplay loop that made people complain about them. Whereas if they kept the spawn counts, but they only lowered their armor pen, now when there's 12 gunships on your screen, if they end up killing you, at least when you respawn, you can start spraying your primary at them and help your teammates out. We even have secondaries now that are really, really good against gunships. The Senator can kill gunships with, I think, 6 shots if they're not too far away. The Loyalist pistol, the plasma pistol, can actually 2-shot them with 2 fully charged shots. So if all they had did was lower the amount of armor pen necessary, it would have solved the problem entirely, in my opinion. And that's why gunships are the perfect example, because there was clearly problems with them. But the patches before the 60-day plan gutted their spawn counts, and then after the 60-day plan, they decided to also make them easy to kill. And the reason I'm pointing this out is because I think from a developer perspective, it's kind of hard to identify this mistake, because they made these changes to gunships over many, many patches over many, many months. And the original change of lowering their spawn counts didn't really mesh well with the changes later, lowering their armor pen and total health. Now, we've also had this happen with bug rocket defense, which is just a complete snooze fest now. I don't even think you have to be a high difficulty player to think that rocket defense is boring. There are almost no spawns on that mission now. I think your whole squad might be lucky to even just get a couple hundred kills by the end of a rocket defense. And anybody who's been playing this game as long as I have, comment down below how much fun this mission actually used to be. Here is a Reddit post from 10 months ago with almost 1,000 upvotes. Level 10 evacuate high value missions are boring. Look, I love the game and just want it to do well, but I just spent the last three of these Terminid missions mostly just standing around waiting for something to shoot at. I feel like with all the buffs they've given to the weapons, we can finally handle larger amounts of enemies. And this Reddit post, I couldn't have said it better myself. But here's the thing, the rocket defense mission used to be insane. Here is a Reddit clip from April last year, 1 year and 4 months ago. aptly titled Attack on Bile Titan. This is how early Helldivers felt sometimes, and nowadays you can kind of make this happen if there happens to be a Bile Titan hole in a nest nearby, but it absolutely never happens in rocket defense anymore, and same with the Terminid Eradicate missions are extremely boring with the spawn counts they offer. Now, another mission on bots, there was the original Capture the Flag mission where the game was actually bugged and spawned infinite dropships until you finished raising the flag. And in patch 01.001.202 on November 5th last year, they reduced enemy spawn rates during the raise flag objective in spread democracy missions to make the objectives easier to complete. Now, at the time, this was after the 60-day plan. This was a ridiculously fun mission for anybody looking for challenge. Again, after the 60-day plan. Even with multiple recoilless rifles on your squad, your team had to be actively fighting enemies the entire duration of the flag raising. You pretty much could not solo this objective simply because there was actually just that many enemies. But now in Raise the Flag missions in solo on difficulty 10, it spawns one dropship of enemies at a time. This dropship right here had a single rocket strider on it. This is difficulty 10 solo bots. This is the state of bots today. How can anybody out there complaining about game difficulty saying like, oh, nerf this gun or nerf this gun? It wouldn't matter what you nerf when on the hardest difficulty in a solo mission on Capture the Flag, it's calling in one singular dropship. And this is something that doesn't get enough attention and something I've never seen any of the nerds in the Armory chat bring up as the main reason the game is too easy now. All right, so there are absolutely other examples of this. I can't begin to name every single one over the past year because there is a lot of them. But in my opinion, I think the developers did not take the completely right feedback from the 60-day plan. And I would imagine the main feedback that people were saying was that people wanted the game to just be fun and not focus so much on difficulty. A lot of people absolutely said this, don't cater to the 5% of sweats who want their balls broken and drugged through glass. Make Helldivers fun again. A ton of people were saying that right before the 60-day plan came out. But here's the thing, in my opinion, difficulty and fun are not mutually exclusive things. Something being extremely easy is not always fun, and something extremely difficult is not always boring. And even though I would say most people queue on difficulty 7, and I think when you talk about game difficulty, it's a less popular topic to talk about, but in reality, think about how this game blew up at launch. Malevelon Creek was known as the planet that the bots were hitting the hardest. The best veterans of this game fought at and gave their lives there. On the Creek's anniversary major order, we ended up fighting at Popley, which made a new legendary planet where the Jet Brigade, the Incinerator Corps, showed up at the same time. The Battle of Meridia with the insane Shrieker swarms at the end of the mission was super memorable. Calypso, where the Illuminate first invaded and there were swarms of voteless and squids creating the most Helldiver deaths on a planet, was recorded. When the Predator strain first came out and they were busting everyone's balls, a majority of people absolutely loved the increased difficulty of these moments. And the reason for that is because our gear is actually strong enough to deal with it now. We have ways to fight back. And during the 60-day plan, everyone showed the back of the box where it says, spread democracy with overpowered weapons. But the picture right to the right of this, also on the back of the box, says work as a team to overcome impossible odds. The only feedback they should have taken from the 60-day plan fiasco was that they were making changes that made the game less fun. Weak feeling weapons are not fun, and when there aren't also hordes of enemies and you're sitting around waiting for rockets to launch, that's not fun either. And at the very least, at least if you want to change the game how I'm saying, then only do it to difficulty 10. I think it is definitely notable that the majority of players don't queue the hardest difficulty, and that's for a reason, because they find the most enjoyment on difficulty 7 or whatever the most popular difficulty is. I'm just assuming it's difficulty 7. Maybe don't bring back the crazy Capture the Flag mission to anything lower than difficulty 9 and 10. But that's the thing. If you're queuing into difficulty 10, you are opting in to overwhelming odds. And it's not an exact science. Obviously, game dev can be difficult. It is an art style. But what it really comes down to is frustrating and unfair mechanics. frustrating and unfair mechanics like gunships being heavily armored. Because what ends up happening in practice is when the heavily armored gunships end up killing you, because there's 12 of them on my screen, it's just frustrating respawning, and then I have to try to run 75 meters to pick up my support weapon. That's an example of something that's frustrating and unfair. However, now that I can kill gunships with a loyalist, I think I can handle 12 of them on my screen now. So everybody who was saying lower the difficulty, what I think they really meant to say was get rid of the bullshit RNG death and make my guns feel good to use. Okay, so back to the Shams comment that more enemies will cause performance issues. Let's talk about which patches of this game had major performance problems. Now, too many spawns probably absolutely makes the performance worth, and certain types of enemies are probably more performance taxing on others. But when we used to be able to push the game with way higher spawns and better performance than we do now, hopefully we can get back to that point. Now, the absolutely most important thing to talk about when it comes to performance and spawn rates is the high kill guaranteed automaton bot crash. The reason why I talked about bug kill counts earlier in this video is because I do not even know what the most amount of bots you can kill this patch. And the reason for that is because when it comes to kill farming bots, it's pretty much the same strategy as bugs. You complete the main objective so that the patrol count is raised, and then you basically sit outside of spawners. And what do bots have? They have detector towers. So we do what is called detector tower kill farming. Well, actually, we used to do that, but we don't do it anymore because for some reason, after you kill a certain number of bots, the game is guaranteed to crash. Now, there are a few theories of why this might be happening, but what I can first say is this started either during the Escalation of Freedom patch or the first 60-day plan patch. I think it was during the first Escalation of Freedom patch. I'm not 100% sure. It's hard to pin down exactly. It was a year ago. Now, this is possibly due to like rocket striders or barrager tanks, or maybe because rocket devastators have to count their rockets now with their new ammo that they run out of. The game is performing too many calculations. There is also another issue that's been in the game for months now, where the host has the smoke from downed dropships, tanks, and hulks on their screen for the entire game, but anyone off host doesn't. Now I'm going to show you guys two pictures from the same game here, and just bear with me. So the first image is what my game looked like on a bot rocket defense, and there is just smoke in every single direction. The second image is from my teammate who was standing right behind me. Look, that's me in the front. I'm T1. And you can see on his screenshot, there is smoke on the right where we just got done killing some bots, but there's a very clear area in the middle. Now back to my screenshot, where there is obviously smoke in that area where my off-host teammate cannot see. Now, a tank that died and it's smoking before it despawns should not leave a smoke cloud where it died for the rest of the game. It should probably be making smoke for like 30 seconds or 45 seconds, and it needs to despawn. You know how they kind of melt into the ground and then remove all of the smoke. So we need to get rid of the lingering smoke on bots, because I do think this has something to do with it. But also make sure enemies are despawning properly and entirely, so that way the game can handle spawning more enemies after that. Now, there was also another patch, patch 01.002.200 on May 18th this year, and it had a update to the AI calculations, and it says a recent software autopsy has revealed an update to the automaton's situational awareness protocol. They are now less distracted by each other, increasing their reaction speed in large groups. We have increased the number of AI calculations the game can perform. This primarily impacts scenarios with a higher number of spawned enemies, improving their response times in those situations. However, this comes with a slight trade-off in game performance. Now, what I will say is when Helldivers in-game performance can feel like it's on life support sometimes, they should not be making changes to the enemy AI or increasing the amount of calculations at all. Now, I remember when this patch came out, my game instantly, on my old PC, I was not able to reach 60 FPS anymore. I think I was at a constant 40 FPS this patch. And the only two changes I noticed with the automatons is that they got increased accuracy and they got increased detection radius. Now, we have felt their accuracy and detection radius change slightly from patch to patch. I don't know if they were tweaking the AI calculations behind the scenes patch to patch, or if accuracy and detection radius has to do with AI calculations. I'm sure it does to some extent, but if there was a way to just increase their accuracy and increase their detection radius, but lower the total amount of AI calculations, then I would absolutely opt for that. And even with this change, I can go into the game and farm a detector tower and guarantee crash the game anytime I want. And the point I'm trying to get at is that increasing their AI calculations didn't actually make the game any harder. It only hurt performance. All right, so let's talk about the game's next issue, in my opinion. And I apologize here. I have to roast the Arrowhead devs a little bit for this one. It is their absolute love for Silent Hill or something, because these devs have a fetish for fog everywhere at all times. Volumetric fog as well, not distance fog, which is extremely taxing on performance. Now, I wouldn't even be bringing this up if there weren't like 15 layers of fog on almost every map all the time. And then on top of that, when you kill tanks on the bot side, their corpses create smoke for the rest of the game. And the water pools on the different maps act like saunas, and even just a body of water can start creating volumetric smoke in the air. And on top of that, Arrowhead added Gloom bugs, which make it so that almost every mob that dies pours more of this volumetric Mexico filter all over my monitor all the time. All right, so I pulled up a clip here to show you guys what I'm talking about with the fog. I just have it muted. We're just gonna take a look at it. So take a look at the amount of fog on my screen. It is a ton, right? But, I'm not gonna sit here and act like volumetric fog is always bad. It does create good atmosphere. It creates, it feels like you're really in the world. It looks decent too, right? Well, what if I told you I'm using a mod from Nexus Mods? I'm using a mod called Volumetric Fog Reducer. This is the game with a fog reducer mod active. Let's go ahead and just watch the rest of the clip where I go ahead and change my fog settings, which disables the mod. This is what the game looks like without the mod active. Let's go ahead and get it back on. And this is what it looks like with the mod active. So even with the mod active, there's still a ton of fog on the screen. This is without it active, and this is with it active. Which one looks better in your opinion? I think this one does. I can see more. I can actually see the outlines of the base, whereas when it's active, there's just nothing to look at. Like, it's too much. It's too much. And volumetric fog is not good for performance. It's very taxing on your graphics card, or well, I shouldn't say it's taxing, but it uses a lot of resources from your graphics card, and it's because the light going through the fog, your graphics card basically calculates what that would look like, versus distance fog, which a lot of game devs used to use to kind of hide that they were rendering less on your screen. And it's like, I wouldn't be bringing this up if there weren't 15 layers of fog on my screen at all time. And, as the light goes through one layer of fog, my graphics card is calculating how that would look. And then it goes through another layer, it's calculating again. I am very positive there is somewhere we can meet in the middle with just a few layers of fog rather than 17 of them. And then on top of that, there's lingering smoke from dead enemies or explosions, or those gas holes on the map that create smoke nonstop. Or like I said, some puddles can act as a sauna and create all this fog. And what's crazy about all of this is I think most people's favorite biome has to be the moon biome, especially when the meteors are going off. And the moon biome has zero fog on it. Now, I think people also like that pretty forest kind of map. But with that being said, I don't think anybody's favorite map is the piss-covered Acid Storm planet. Hilariously enough, I actually do like the Acid Storm planet because it's like, okay, I've dedicated myself to full fog, but that's besides the point. With that being said, I really do think there is somewhere in the middle where we can meet. And on top of that, we also have to talk about Gloom bugs really quickly, which I did mention a second ago. But the problem was the day they added Gloom bugs to the game, they almost immediately removed them within the hour because they were crashing every game nonstop. Now, that was back in February when they first added them, but recently the Gloom bugs came back, and immediately after they returned, I saw a lot of clips popping up showing the game stuttering and just freezing. I've experienced this myself in the megacities, where your game will stutter for 15 seconds at a time. And I could be wrong, but I do think that this is the Gloom bugs creating fog on death en masse across all the mobs. It's almost like they added an enemy where the modifier in the difficulty of the enemy was minus 20 FPS on death, which is a wild modifier for an enemy that I've never seen a game devs use on purpose. It's not actually difficult, but you know, I guess you also can't win a mission if your game crashes. And I also don't think it's the explosions on these enemies causing worse performance, because we have enemies that explode. We have Bile Warriors, the Spitters, Bile Spewers, they all explode on death, and there are map seeds where that's all you're fighting. But the difference is those enemies don't create fog on death. This is the same as the tanks exploding on death, but the tanks create that smoke nonstop, and I do think that this is where the performance issue lies. Now, hopefully there is at least one Arrowhead developer watching this, and let me just ask you this question. Would you rather have Gloom bugs, where the modifier is it creates fog, and that is the difficulty of that enemy, or can we just get more spawns? Which one is actually more difficult? Like, just lay them out side by side. Which is more difficult? I can't see, but I can still lob stratagems and throw as many explosions in the general direction and still kill everything. Or we have more patrols, we have more spawns, and that's actually more challenging. All right, so there is a number of different topics we could have covered in this video of nerfing the enemies or the spawns too hard. One example I do have to mention was the bugged patrols update, where 4-player scaling was applied to solo difficulty. But personally, I think there should be an option where I can queue into a solo game and have 4-player difficulty. Or maybe I can queue into a duo with 4-player difficulty. This is an interesting way they can increase the difficulty for those who want it, and it's a little toggle of a switch, so it doesn't affect everyone. And there is a number of other topics over the past year, but I've just played this game a lot. I remember a lot of these. I can't remember everything. I just wanted to bring some awareness and highlight some of these issues, which, if fixed, would make the game much better. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'll see you guys next time. I'm out.